Welcome to this video that explains the fundamentals of the Praxis Delivery Model. This provides a foundation for understanding the rich diversity of projects, programs, portfolios, and their management, collectively referred to as project delivery. Projects and their management have centuries, if not millennia, of history, but most of what we regard as the modern discipline only started being formalized at the beginning of the 19th century. One of the relatively recent developments is the compartmentalization of the discipline into areas that are presented as being mutually exclusive. 1992 saw the publication of a report called A Guide to Program Management. This was the first time that the term program was used to describe something different to a project. It also included the idea of a portfolio program that subsequently became what we now simply refer to as a portfolio. 2001 saw the publication of the Agile Manifesto, which sought to describe better ways of developing software. As this gained in popularity, there was a perceived need to have a term that represented the opposite to Agile. The term waterfall was taken out of context from a 1970 paper on software development by Winston Royce. The term is often applied to so-called traditional industries, such as construction, where all projects were deemed to be inflexible and the antithesis of agile. Thus, we arrived at the point where the entire diverse world of project delivery was reduced to 5 labeled compartments: project, program, portfolio, agile, and waterfall. More recently, after the realization that the agile-waterfall dichotomy didn't work, the term hybrid was invented to fill the gap. In this video, we explain the Praxis Delivery Model that seeks to get away from these mutually exclusive buckets while retaining the convenience of terms that help communicate different areas of the discipline. If we are to describe a broad landscape of project delivery, we need to start with 2 fundamentals. Firstly, the goals we need to achieve and the work required to realize them. And secondly, how certain we are about the detail of those goals and work. This gives us 2 axes, scope and uncertainty. These are sliding, not numerical scales. Uncertainty ranges from low to high, and scope ranges from simple to extensive. A typical project organization is concerned with delivering outputs and possibly benefits where there is a simple relationship between output and benefit. A typical program organization is concerned with broader scope that includes multiple outputs and multiple benefits with many-to-many relationships between them. There is no obvious dividing line between those initiatives that we choose to manage as a project and those we choose to manage as a program. Portfolios coordinate a collection of projects and programs. Their scope is the sum of their component projects and programs, plus the organizational glue that binds them. A simple portfolio may contain just a few simple projects, while an extensive one would contain multiple projects and programs of varying complexity. These 3 entities sit along the horizontal scope axis. Uncertainty is managed through agility, and the top end of this scale is what is known as agile. If the objectives and how to achieve them are of low uncertainty, then we would need less agility, and this is what has become labeled as waterfall. Any initiative sits somewhere on these 2 axes. Not only that, but different parts of a project, program, or portfolio may sit at different points. The purpose of this exercise is to appreciate that viewing the world of project delivery through the lens of 5 labeled components is a misleading simplification. Competent project managers understand the continuum of scope and the continuum of uncertainty and agility. They can adapt their style to all points in this landscape. There is one final point on the fundamentals of the model. Most projects with simple scope will have relatively low levels of uncertainty, whereas most programs with extensive scope will have relatively high levels. The model illustrates this with simple shading and dotted lines. Most initiatives fit between the dotted lines, but there may always be outliers because this is not a definitive model. This approach is the cornerstone of the Praxis framework and has 3 layered purposes. Firstly, it forms the basis of discussing how the processes and functions in Praxis should be adapted to different contexts. Secondly, it assists with an understanding of how different tools and techniques are more appropriate in some contexts than others. And finally, it provides common ground to understand other models that deal with types of project and program, as well as complexity. These aspects will be the subject of future videos, but in the meantime, you can read about them in the Praxis Delivery Model entry in the encyclopedia on our website. A key principle in the model is the relationship between uncertainty and agility. If you would like to understand more about this, including factors that enable agility and those that constrain it, have a look at this video on the Praxis website. In summary, project delivery is a broad and diverse discipline. Forcing all aspects into a limited number of compartments is misleading. Understanding the continua of scope and uncertainty equips you to deal with this diversity.